What I would tell you is this. Denver, keeping Michael Porter Jr., having the Joker, having Jamal Murray, and adding Aaron Gordon to the mix. This dude, he can be physical. From a physicality perspective, he can be one of those individuals that's helping to guard LeBron and others. He's a legit 6'8". He's a Skywalker. He's averaged 14 this year, shooting about, 37% from three-point range, 43% from the field. He's a big-time addition to the Denver Nuggets, and I definitely think is an incredible plus that could put Denver over the hump potentially. It's something interesting. Remember, they had Jeremy Grant last year, who obviously was incredibly impressive and ended up getting that big contract from Detroit because of it. This guy, to me, is on that level, if not better, in terms of what he's going to be capable of doing for the Denver Nuggets. Not to mention the fact that he can help, because you had Millsap there for years, who's an age-old veteran, very, very savvy and can be on a roster, but nevertheless, that's what you had. This guy, Aaron Gordon, brings that to the table. So I would tell you right now, Utah can't be ignored, but neither can Denver. So I'm looking at Utah, the Clippers, and Denver battling. If the Lakers don't have Anthony Davis, one of those three, it's a crapshoot right there. And even if they have Anthony Davis, it's going to be a rough out. They're going to make it a rough out.
Well, Anthony Davis is the whole key, as you said.
Yeah.
Just keep in mind, LeBron and AD are so good together. And no, they don't have Rondo anymore, and that may be an issue, but Schroeder's a good player. Think about what Denver did in last year's playoffs. They beat Utah in an all-time great first-round series. Yeah. And then they go on to knock off the Clippers, come from behind. And they were no match for the Lakers. I mean, Jokic and Murray were both playing at MVP level. And there's a difference between, MVP level, apparently, and what LeBron and AD can do. They were no match for the Lakers. But adding Aaron Gordon, especially if AD may not be 100%, Aaron Gordon, besides everything else, from everything I know about him, he's a good guy, right? He'll be good for the locker room and all that stuff.
Right.
But he's also, as you mentioned, a Skywalker who, so far this year, is finally hitting his threes at an acceptable level, even more, almost 38% from three. He's taken 4 of them a game. That really adds something, because you have to remember when you look at this Nuggets roster, it's not just that they have Jamal Murray, who's normally an excellent player, maybe like an all-star level player. It's that they have playoff Rondo, playoff Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray, what he showed in the playoffs last year is he goes from maybe an all-star to an MVP when you need him most. You put that together with Jokic, a guy having one of the greatest offensive seasons ever, and you have Porter Jr. hitting shots, and now you have Aaron Gordon. That's a whole lot. And I would just also tell you, because we've been through all the teams, the West, you're swimming with sharks. You mentioned Denver, you mentioned Utah, Stephen A., the Lakers, the Clippers, the Blazers add Powell. The Mavs added J.J. Redick.
Yes.
The Mavs are my sleeper team in the playoffs anyway. Don't let
You know how I feel about J.J. Redick. We know what a fan I am of J.J. Redick. I hate the fact that the Sixers lost him. I always thought that the Sixers should have found a way to keep J.J. Redick, regardless of what you pointed out about his defensive liability. So I think that that's a big pickup for the Dallas Mavericks, because you lost Seth Curry. And you need somebody, and even though Seth Curry, could arguably a better pure shooter per se, you know what? And he's a little bit bigger, or at least he appears to be. Here's the thing: J.J. Redick's ability to move without the basketball is what you cannot minimize, because you got to have eyes in the back of your head watching everywhere he is, because you still can't leave him open. And getting back to Denver, I don't even understand, Max, how there was even a discussion as to whether or not the Denver Nuggets would consider trading Michael Porter Jr. I will remind everybody, this brother,
he's offensively special.
Brother listen, we know his injury history, but this dude right here is averaging 16 a game. He shoots 52% from the field. He shoot like 42, 43% from three-point range.
Yep.
I mean, what? And he just gets started. He's 22.
Yep.
Listen, I'm going on Michael Porter.
The only reason he wasn't drafted higher is because of the potential injury, because of the injury history and everything coming in.
And it says something when the great Jerry West, passes up on you twice. Because the Clippers had the 12th and the 13th pick in that draft, and they didn't take him.
But as long as he's
Jerry
healthy,
West doesn't usually miss.
As long as he's healthy, that offense is just going up and up and up.
Michael Porter's special. Yeah. I like Michael Porter. I want
to say this about the Mavs, too. The way that team is constructed with Luka, if Porzingis stays healthy, Now you add Redick. They have got Kleba is like 6'10". He shoots over 40%.
Here's the problem. You keep bringing up Porzingis and his health. I will say this about Porzingis because I want to say this about him when you mentioned him last week. There are certain guys that might be injury prone, but then you could be so much so that people get physical with you on purpose with the intent to not harm you or your career or anything, but they know you're relatively soft. See, when freak injuries happen. They just come with the game. But in Porzingis' case, because he's 7'3",
yeah, he's a giant.
I think people look at him and say, look, man, all we got to do is get physical with him. Look, he can't take it. That's what they said.
Embiid is injury prone. AD is now sidelined.
Yeah.
He's been injury prone throughout his career. Porzingis,
but
these dudes are 6'11" and better.
But Embiid is strong, and he usually ends up injuring himself, like the way he came down on his leg and his knee locked in. Okay, rare. Anthony Davis, he's a finesse player. I'm not going to call him soft. He's a finesse player. But there are people on his own team who wish he was a bit tougher. And remember, we had him on the show. And you remember when the Clippers were talking about him. They were last year before when they were supposed to meet the Lakers, they were talking about the thing about Anthony Davis is he's elite. You can't stop him. But you know that he's going to get hurt. Now, that didn't happen in last year's playoffs, but it happened this season.
But Luka now has everyone on the floor with him can bomb. Everyone on the floor can bomb from the 1 through the 5. They can all bomb.
And Luka is a big-time passer.
Yep.
Yes. So Dallas could get very interesting. But I don't consider them better than Utah, the Clippers, or Denver. And we didn't even bring up Phoenix.
Yeah, I mean, Phoenix went 8-0 in the bubble, added Chris Paul, hasn't looked back.
What about Phoenix? They're second in the West. Yeah, how come you guys haven't mentioned them?
Because they're relatively young. They have great coaching. Monty Williams and his staff are doing a phenomenal job. All right, and I think he's a Coach of the Year candidate. Chris Paul and his leadership. I actually think that Chris Paul, to some degree, should be in the MVP conversation, considering what he's doing to lead that team. It's just that Devin Booker's on the squad as well. But and they got a star in Devin Booker. But some of the pieces around them are so young, you just get the sense they'll be very interesting. They'll be a hard out, but they're a piece away from having legitimate contender status. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.